Hey everyone, welcome back to some new I Do Work Here Lady stories. In this video we are looking at a crazy story about a basic girl that just couldn't stay calm. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to hit the like button. And now let's start with the first story. The first story is called, I Work Here. I work at a small hospital in a small town in the rural southwest. Staffing is so small that everyone knows everyone on a first name basis. I'm a sysadmin in the IT department, so I work in a team to keep the computers, printers, phones and network running. I handle around 80% of the desktop and printer support, and everyone in the hospital knows me as the lady that can fix any computer issue. One day I came into work a little early to catch up on a project before the chaos began. It was in the middle of 2020, so we had to walk through a certain entrance for a member of the nursing staff to take our temperature and ask the CDC questions. I walked into the screening area at 6:45 AM, dressed in my usual khakis and polo shirt, hospital badge around my neck. Good morning. Good morning, what are you in for today? I stare at her for a moment. I don't recognize her. I'm here to work. She looked me up and down, taking in the lack of scrubs, before a look of confusion settled in on her face. I'm sorry, are you a vendor? I slowly raised my badge to eye level so she can see it better. I work in the IT department. Oh my god, I'm so sorry, I didn't even look at the badge. I have a feeling that she needed coffee a lot more than me that morning. The next story is called, I Wasn't Cutting. I used to work at a nightclub for many years as a side gig. This club had a lot of pretty diverse events. But every Saturday night was one of the biggest parties in the city, so it brought out the basics in droves. Just your regular young city dwellers or bridge hoppers flocking to get their groove on. This place would get packed. Like squeezing through a sardine can packed. So packed that often people couldn't even dance. They just stood smashed up against each other, sort of wriggling a bit, at least back in its heyday. This was not my type of event, I super hate strangers touching me. One of my jobs was to tend to the bathrooms. I think this means my karma from a past life must have been really screwed. You can imagine how disgusting that chore was on the busy Saturday nights. There were more than a few bathrooms and one was a single stall on the top floor. This one always had a line and had the most issues as people liked its privacy to do all sorts of things you can imagine people doing during a raging party. Anyway, I marched up the stairs, fighting the crowd back as best as I could, to refresh the tiny loo, and as usual there was quite a line. Now, I'm not only in uniform, with a radio hanging off of me and cleaning towels and such, but my arms were full of toilet paper. I tried to communicate to the line as best as I could over blaring music and endless screaming that I needed to go next so they'd have the ability to wipe if needed. Even though the line was filled with wubby clubgoers, pretty desperate to use the toilet, they seemed to understand. Except this one chick. She was very basic. Like you'd hire her to stand in as an extra in a Gap commercial. She was young, blonde and otherwise forgettable, though attractive for sure. She wasn't even dressed up for dancing, just like she walked out of a mall on an average day. Immediately she was irate and started yelling that I couldn't cut the line. This was many years ago, so I don't remember all the vitriol she spewed. But you would never guess that this basic little lady would have a mouth worse than a sailor. I'm trying to assure her that it will just be 2 seconds. All I had to do was put down paper and wipe a surface. And she isn't even next in line. Then the door opened. I immediately rushed in, and the lady tried to follow me in the single-stall bathroom. She's losing her mind and I'm scared, so I quickly start shutting the door, careful not to close her in at the same time, and lock it. I radio security for help and wait. I'm a coward, so I waited until security gave the all clear to leave. I didn't think anything more about it because clubs are crazy and things just happen on the regular. Later, I'm outside on a break when who do I see? Little Miss Basic in handcuffs. She'd been set down on the curb by the police and I'm asked to give my statement of what led up to this 5'5" wife and taking security. Her friends, a guy and another lady, were standing over her yelling, "Get her out of handcuffs, she didn't do anything." They weren't around for the incident, at least not that I saw. And she is crying, saying, "I didn't hit anyone." Once I filled out the statement, security told me what she did to them. Once they arrived upstairs at her freaking out on her bathroom door, they tried to calm her down. These guys were huge but have a lot of control, and this isn't the kind of club where people get roughed up by staff. Instead of calming down and listening to reason, she went feral and started hitting them on their heads mostly, going for their faces. She even left a huge scratch near the head of the security's eye. She must have been climbing up the 6-foot+ guy to injure him in that way. I never saw that guy actually injured by anyone my entire time working there. It took everything in me not to start laughing when they hauled the little lady off for attacking 2 people. I'm also really glad I got her out of the bathroom before she got to me too. The third story is called I Can Shut You Down. This is a story of a lady who thought I worked in the Help You with Dumb Computer Questions department, the help desk. In fact, I work in the Cut Off All of Your Access department, IT security. This was our fun little conversation. I got your email requesting a new access code you sent to information security last night. I see that someone sent you a new code on Tuesday. Then again yesterday you asked someone else for another new access code. Perhaps I can help with the underlying problem. I didn't email anyone. Are you going to help me or what? So you're telling me the email to infosec@company.com requesting a new access code last night wasn't really you? I said I didn't email you. So you are telling me this email is a forgery? It's not really you requesting access to your account? I'm very busy. This conversation is over. I understand you are very busy. However, if someone has access to your email and is using it to send forged requests for access codes, I'm going to need to lock your account now. You'll be able to log into your computer after we figure out who is pretending to be you and how they are doing that. I now recall sending that email. Moral of the story, don't try to lie to your security team. Shortly afterward, she realized that after our conversation she lost all access. That's because I reset the access code as requested, again. Meaning the code she had no longer worked. The next story is called Actually, That's My Boss. It was the year 2014. I had gotten my dog trainer's license 2 years ago and soon found a job in a small but pretty popular dog training school. It was just a side job, but I loved it. Since I had collected a lot of experience with dogs even before I got my license, I got assigned the department for complicated dogs. This dog school was basically the concept that dog owners called in with their dogs, described what exactly they were looking for, and we assigned them to one of the different types of departments. Obviously, as the stereotype shows it, I had to put up with a lot of dangerous dogs like pit bulls, American Stafford Terriers and others, just because their owners thought it would be cool to train their dogs to guard their property and to have a smart big dog. Obviously, most of them realized later that they couldn't handle the dog and sought help. On this day, I was in the middle of training. These specific dogs required that their owners were away, so I could work on the problems first without being disturbed. And I had several dangerous dogs running around me cause it was playtime. The peaceful atmosphere gets disturbed by someone yelling something over the fence around the small field. One dog starts barking and gets completely furious, trying to stomp to the fence, and sets the other dogs into angry mode too. I somehow managed to collect them and leash them to some extra posts so they can't do anything stupid. I was already mad because at the fence there's a sign, if in use, don't disturb. And because whoever this was just put my own health at serious risk, I walk over to the fence and there's a guy standing and looking incredibly mad. Hello sir, how can I help you? What are you doing? These are dangerous dogs. I will call the police. I am a pretty small girl and look younger than I am, maybe that's what set him off. Sir, what are you talking about? They are dangerous dogs. You need to get out of there. You are not allowed in here. Sir, I work here. Stop lying. You are too young and weak to work here. He tries to open the gate. Thank God it was locked, exactly because of this. Sir, I really do work here. Please don't damage the gates, they are locked for a good reason. Liar. How did you even get in there? I desperately waved my keys in front of his face. You surely stole the keys. I will call the police. I was exhausted and worried because the pit bulls behind me started making very angry noises. Fine, do it. But maybe you go into the office behind you first if you got any complaints. He went to the office and I finally could get back to the dogs, who at this point were completely losing it, and I had to be very careful. Sometime later, the guy comes back with one of my assistants, but in another group. He points at me and starts yelling something, to which I just sigh and put the dogs away. As I walk over, my assistant recognizes me, sighs and turns to the guy, explaining that I am basically his boss. The guy stares at me and starts saying how that's not possible because a weak woman can't handle these big, dangerous dogs. And how he is going to report that to the police, and finally storms off. The result of this encounter was putting up another sign at the entrance of the property to direct any issues with the trainers to the office, and me having lost the training progress of 2 days. Great. Just don't assume just because someone doesn't look like he fits for the job, it means he doesn't work there. Also, if he has the keys. The last story is called Not Your Client. 10 or so years ago, my brother was trying to decide what sector he'd like to work in after he'd quit a job in food service after one frustrating day. Interested in law, he was able to get a customer service type job at the local crown court. One day, he's taking a break in an otherwise empty waiting room when he's accosted by a barrister. "Where have you been?" "You're supposed to be in the courtroom." "Pardon, I think you're mistaken. No, I don't want to hear any excuses. You are supposed to be in the courtroom right now." My brother has what can charitably be labeled anger management problems. But in a professional setting, he's able to control them better. They exhibit as sarcasm and malicious compliance. So he decides that he'll comply with this barrister's demand. So before too long, my brother is in the dock with the barrister. The jury is led back into the courtroom by a somewhat flustered looking usher, and everybody stands as the judge re-enters the courtroom. And then there's a pause. "Barrister, where's your client?" The barrister asks confused. "He's right here, Your Honor." "No, that's my usher. I was wondering where he was." He should have been leading the jury back in here. The barrister was too embarrassed to say anything. "Barrister, it would behoove you to learn what your clients look like." Then he addressed my brother. "Would you kindly go and fetch the actual defendant?" Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.